It is a pleasure to be meeting with you again.
You as well.
Thanks for your time today.
Yeah. So we've met a couple times in the past and we've talked. I had some sort of just more underlying questions and just to kind of better understand sort of where you guys, or where the founder stands, where you stand on sort of the business. So one question I had was like just trying to understand what's sort of the vision or the goal of Earth Escape, sort of maybe near term and or long term.
So I would say that first of all, our immediate goal is to build a small fleet of 6 recreation launch vehicles.
Okay.
And with that, we're hoping to be able to create an infrastructure that offers space tours to the general public.
Right, exciting. So with that, is that sort of the goal, is to build once we, so it's based on my understanding, it seems that this investment would be used towards the building of 6. Long term, do you plan on building more than that at all, or?
Depending on how the initial launch goes, I think.
Right.
So we've, I guess, kind of done a soft launch. We've experimented with 15 tours to space already, and they've gone significantly well.
Okay.
And so, you know, based on kind of how the demand fluctuates once this is fully implemented, I'm kind of reevaluating that on, does it make sense to add more than 6, or should we keep it at 6? And or if it makes sense, do we need to reduce?
Yeah.
Right.
But
So you mentioned that you've done sort of 15 launches to date, and we come from an aerospace background, so we know that safety is very important. Sort of how do you guys evaluate safety of those launches to sort of guarantee safety going forward?
that's a really good question.
That's a really good question, and that's our concern, by the way. I mean, but
So, how do we measure the safety?
So
I'm not sure.
I noticed in sort of the information here that Earth Escape sort of claims that RLB is 10 times as safe as any aircraft to date.
right. So
I guess I'm just trying to learn more about that, just to kind of get a little background.
So we are trying to create our risk management kind of evaluation metrics for this kind of, for this kind of issue.
Okay, so it's sort of in development as we grow the company. We'll sort of develop our processes.
So right now, we are in progress to develop risk management.
Okay.
So and we can get our expectation anytime soon. So then we can share what we think about our risk. Regarding this trip.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
we've, you know, previously partnered with another firm in which we had a large capital investment of $23 million.
Okay.
And I believe some of that was used to help with the funding of this safety protocol.
Okay.
Or the safety, you know, of this.
So so some of that initial investment is kind of getting this safety assessment off the ground.
Yep, getting things up and running and making.
Safety is the
Sort of
first.
determine viability of the investment of the, like, if it makes sense to go forward. Okay.
Right.
Sort of on that 23 million note, do you guys have any sort of approximation about how much of that might have gone into, say, building the initial RLV? And I guess, is there any information? So it seems that our investment will be used towards the funding to build 6 more RLVs. I guess I'm just sort of curious what percentage of the investment would go towards the RLVs, or if we know that information.
I do
Or-
not know
okay.
that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess so. Where I was thinking on that is
Yeah.
sort of if the initial investment from some of the independent investors to get us off the ground was a total of 23 million,
Mhm.
and then some of, not all of that, assuming was used towards was not all that was used towards RLV. Some of it was towards like the business aspect of kind of running things and the safety is
Yep.
the measurements. I was sort of approximating that of that cost, the RLV was somewhere between 17 and 18 million, or just approximately call it
Yep.
20, so that the total value of the 6 RLVs would be approximately 120 million.
Right.
Mhm.
So then, I guess one question I sort of have is like, how does the business, like, are you seeking investment solely from Aerovent Capital, or
At
are you
this
sort of
time,
shopping
yes.
around? Okay.
We would love to partner with
Right.
Aerovent. It seems that we've had a great relationship
Yeah.
thus
Mhm.
far. We have a
Okay.
great reputation.
Mhm.
This is ideally where we're at.
Excellent. That's really good news. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
So on that note, with the 120 million being total, it's like the total cost of RLVs plus maybe some extra funding to sort of fund facilities and improve these safety
Right.
features, you could probably say the total value of sort of the business post-investment
Mhm.
would be somewhere around like 130 to 140 million.
So, long term,
Mhm.
in
Right.
an effort of being open and transparent here
Yeah.
and building a great relationship,
Yeah.
Mhm.
the overall value of the firm we believe to be somewhere between 250 and 300 million following the launch of these 6 new RLVs.
Okay.
At this time, obviously much lower than that.
Yeah.
Right.
However, that's where we're predicting this to go over the long term.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's sort of projected growth in the future.
Mhm.
So one of the challenges that our firm has is just this is a relatively new sort of venture. You guys are
Right.
breaking ground.
Right.
It's really cool and exciting, but there is we have to realize some of the risk.
Right.
So from our perspective, we can't use the 5-year valuation just because we've
Mhm.
haven't sort of mass produced or made it marketable to the masses at this time.
Yep.
So sort of bringing that valuation back 5 years to the net present value, we could probably work with estimation around like maybe 150 to 160, but I think at this time it would be sort of risky to assume
Okay.
that sort of growth. Now that sort of growth projection is very promising because that means that you guys have high hopes for the technology.
Right.
So I guess based on our 150 million or $100 million
Yep.
investment, that would put our investment somewhere around whatever 100 divided by 150 is 66%.
Great math.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
So I
16.
propose
Yeah.
that for our $100 million investment, we would take on somewhere between 60 and 69% of the business.
So, unfortunately, that's something that we aren't gonna be able to do. So we're hoping to kind of, you know, work with you a little bit here. Because of, so because, I've been the CEO and, you know, helped kind of launch this whole thing from the ground,
Yeah.
bottom up, really wanting to be able to remain majority ownership in this.
Okay.
So, looking to be around 49%. I don't know what's possible for you, however.
So, sort of on the note of the majority owner, this is, being honest, the largest investment that our firm has made to date. And so this is equally a large step forward for us in terms of risks and investments. And so given that, because we are putting forth a large portion of the funding that is going to enable us to achieve that future state together, we would feel that it would be in our best interest to sort of be able to, for lack of a better word, save our investment if for some reason some things were to go south. And with that, we would need to be a majority owner. So I would propose I could come down, looking at the financials, to 55, but I think less than 50 is going to be tough. And maybe we can set this one aside and sort of come back to it too. Not write anything down firm. Maybe we can sort of tie some things together and sort of answer some of those unanswered questions that we've risen or brought up right now.
The 55 is certainly not out of the question, but yeah, let's see where some of these other things might land and circle back.
Okay.
Okay.
And I guess on that note too, sort of the type of stock, we'll just put that aside as well until we circle back around. So maybe moving away from the financial side of things and moving more towards the protection of the investment and I guess when I say protection of investment too, I want to be clear that this isn't, this is a we thing, and we have a lot of experience investing in aerospace, in high risk things, and it's just sort of industry standard, just to make sure that all bases are covered. But what I want you guys to know is that we are totally on board with helping the Earth Escape business grow and flourish and to become successful. Our business model is, or not model, but sort of the way our company operates is we like to pair up with sort of newer, low equity, but potentially successful firms, and then help them using our resources to maximize their potential for success. And then it's sort of a win-win situation for both parties.
Great.
So, so I guess moving forward, I'd sort of like to talk about like maybe the leadership of the organization, whether it be CEO or board. What are your thoughts? As I know you were the CEO, you founded this business, you've been working very hard for 4 years to sort of get this off the ground and get to where it is today, which is very impressive. What do you see? You're welcome. How do you see the business sort of growing moving forward?
So easily we see that the firm could earn a multiple of 10 return on its investment in the next 5 years, as long as the company develops as planned. In addition, the company's already gone through its most vulnerable stage by developing this launch vehicle that's proven to surpass the industry standards. And so as you kind of alluded to CEO and or board positions, Earth Escape would love to bring on, at least one of the Aerovent capitalists.
Aerovent Capital, yes.
Yes. We would love to have at least one of your members on our board.
Sort of on that note, is there a reason, I guess, is there any option potentially to bring on any more?
We prefer to keep the board as very small. We don't want to get it to be too large, because there's very monotonous issues that come along with that. And we are a smaller firm. And so wanting to keep that mentality, I guess. So one is ideal.
Okay. I think we could work with one.
Do one?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
All right, and so I guess kind of on that token, talking about future growth, do you have any intentions of saying leaving the business, or are you planning on sticking this out for till the end, till it becomes, I guess, what's sort of your long-term goals of this investment or of this endeavor?
Yep. So we're not a serial entrepreneur. Don't intend at all to leave here and go start another company.
Okay.
This has kind of been the baby from the bottom up. Recently left the organization that I was with in order to pursue this. So fully intend to stay on and see this all the way through.
Okay. So sort of on that note, one thing that we would like to propose is sort of vesting the shares of the founder to sort of, you could look at it as like a reward, but also payment for staying on longer.
Yep.
Given that you would like to stay on long term, do you see anything against maybe vesting your initial investment over the course of, say, maybe 6 or 7 years?
6 or 7's a little lengthy. Mainly because a CEO can't control all the factors that are going to affect a company. And so I don't know that a CEO should be replaced in a certain market force or unavoidable delay. We're not on that yet.
So the vesting of shares wouldn't mean replacement. This
We're
would
not there
purely
yet.
This would purely be a matter of if you just remain with the company, your investment would be returned back to you over a period of time. So over 6 years, every month you would receive 1/72 of your initial investment. So that over the course of, say, 6 years, you would then recoup all of your initial investment. Plus, you would obviously still maintain your sort of salary and whatever other pay and benefits come along with that.
So again, 6 or 7's a little long.
Okay.
However, I would be willing to come to 4 or 5.
Okay. Does 5 sound all right?
I can work with 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So along those notes, obviously I'm not going to be around forever.
Right.
So in the event of something happening, what are we thinking in terms of different provisional projections?
In terms of sort of like staffing?
My replacement,
Okay.
yes.
So, as we've mentioned, there's been a lot of discussion sort of around achieving certain growth and expectations over the next 5 years. Sort of as you alluded to, the 5-year projection from the founder is approximately in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 million, is that correct?
Yep.
So, in order to achieve that, because I think it's in the interest of both parties that we remain successful and achieve those goals. So in order to achieve those, we would like to maybe put in some provisions along the lines of, if we're achieving those growth rates, or if we stop achieving those growth rates in a certain year, we would like to suggest the possibility of maybe bringing in a CEO replacement, but then the founder could still play a prominent role in the business. I mean, like there's many positions such as like a chief technical officer, which has sort of been his career. He spent his life in technical, so that would still be a very worthy position to take on in the event that sort of the financial aspects aren't working out.
Right.
Yeah. So sort of on those lines, I would sort of call the 300 million mark the most aggressive growth rate. That's assuming best case everything. Lots of people are interested in the product or into the services. So I'd propose that if that's the target that we'd sort of like to focus on, if we aren't meeting those aggressive growth rates, then we would bring in a professional CEO or someone that we have vetted out that we feel would be very good for the company, and then the founder would take on sort of another secondary but important role within the business.
I'm in full agreement that I think there needs to be some type of provision in place. As we kind of alluded to, I'm not going to be around forever. However, I don't know that an aggressive approach is necessarily the best approach. And I say that because CEO can't control all the factors that affect a company. And I don't know that a CEO should be replacing certain market forces in which there's an unavoidable delay that could cause revenue to be slightly below targets if it's just for, you know, a specific year or possibly two. With that, I would propose just not taking such an aggressive approach and maybe dialing it back a little bit, but still making sure there's some sort of provision in place.
And when you say dial back, sort of walk me through that.
Dial back meaning either more of a conservative and or moderate approach as opposed to the aggressive approach targeting that 300 million.
Okay. Do you think that using sort of a moderate, or even if we were to say conservative projection, do you think do you think those paths even come close to do you think those achieve the 300, or is that specifically the aggressive growth path? And that if we don't achieve the aggressive growth path, or I think maybe it'd be in the best interest to sort of set like maybe a moderate, because I would say the 250 to 300 is on the higher end, and that,
I can be in agreement with that.
Okay.
Yep, I do think there needs to be something in place, and if we are going to target the 300 million, while, you know, I don't like to think about somebody replacing me, I know that it might need to happen. And so in the interest of the company, moderate sounds fine.
All right.
Good deal.
All right. So earlier you mentioned that this deal is very important for Earth Escape, and we also agree at Aerovent Capital this is a very important deal for us as well, or a sort of venture, would you say. So kind of coming back to your comment on how we are currently the focus of Earth Escape in terms of looking for investors. Could we agree that to implement sort of a no-shop provision, in that while we work through some of these discussions on leadership and how the business is going to be running, kind of come to terms that we implement a no-shop provision, which would guarantee that for 60 days we could work with you and know that we are the only ones, there's not sort of a conflict of interest or anything of that sort?
Open to the idea. However, in an effort to establish the trust between this relationship, you know, it's just more appealing to me to know that you trust us in our word of, you know, we aren't seeking out other investors, and trusting us that, you know, we want this relationship. We don't necessarily see that there's a true need to have it in writing, just in order to establish that relationship.
And this is kind of coming back, one of those things, just in regards to protecting the interest, because it is such a large amount of capital for Aerovent, and it represents such a large opportunity. We really would like to know that we're not being just jerked around per se during the process, and we want to know that your full attention is on getting this deal, and that we're not being sort of gamed with another deal to see who could maybe like bid the highest situation. So sort of to make sure that it's genuine and guarantee that we would like to see that a no-shop provision be
Something I think that we're open to, but again, maybe we circle back with that based on some of these other areas.
Okay, we can do that.
We circle back.
Okay. So, it seems we've come full circle.
Right.
Pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of back to the top. What are your thoughts?
Perhaps we could take a water break really quick and, just kind of regroup and,
Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
kind of let us just reevaluate kind of where we're at and,
Okay.
yeah. So, kind of thought about it and, as you kind of mentioned, we're open to doing the 55% equity
Mm-hmm.
if you're willing to trust us at our word of not seeking out other venture capitalists in terms of not having a shop provision. So not doing the no shop provision.
Okay.
So that-
We can get along with that.
that's
Yeah.
doable?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
I see what you did there. I'm not defeated.
Okay. What other items did we need to kind of get through here?
All right, so since we've established the 55% equity stake by Aerovent
Okay.
Capital, I would like to discuss the type of stock that capital will be received by the company in the form of. So, kind of recircling around, we would most prefer to have the stock in the form of convertible preferred shares,
Okay.
which means that if the firm were to go under, we would be ensured that our investment would be returned back to our business. However, I would like to preface that with our outlook is very positive, so I don't see the need for us to have to worry about sort of the reinvestment of shares. Now, like you mentioned, there are some forces that we can't take into account. But I think that with the right team involved and based on the success that we've had so far, I'm highly confident that we won't need to really take action on that. But just it's sort of just like an industry standard work, it'd be with our extensive experience in aerospace. That's sort of been like the going norm with these types of investments.
I think because you were willing to kind of let the no shop provision go,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's something we can definitely make work.
Perfect.
Yep.
I guess what we have left kind of on the agenda here are things to discuss.
Okay.
Dividends and anti-dilution rights.
Right.
Sounds right.
What are you kind of thinking?
So dividends are valuable to the business, as it is with a large investment. We sort of expect some sort of return over time without having to experience any sort of liquidation event that requires to sell to regain, or to sell the business to regain our investment back. So we were hoping that we could come to agreement on maybe 8% dividends year after year. This would be, yeah. Cut that piece out.
So,
And the way the dividends would work too is they wouldn't be paid in cash to Aerovent Capital.
Right.
The way the dividends would work in this case is that would go into sort of the equity, and then in the event that so in the event that there would be a sell-off, that a dividend would be, so if the company were to be sold, or if the company were to start selling off, that equity would then be paid to Aerovent Capital in the future.
So 8% is a little bit more than kind of what we were thinking. But in terms of the anti-dilution, we would like to offer you the right of first refusal. I don't know if this has any pull in kind of what you're thinking for dividends, but the 8% is kind of a little bit more than what we were thinking.
Okay. I guess talk me through that. What were you sort of thinking?
So more. We ideally were hoping not to. But knowing, kind of based on what you said here about, getting the company up and running, and knowing that that's not an easy task, wanting to give you something for these efforts. And your talk about being paid in equity as opposed to cash is definitely something worth working with. So I was thinking more around the 1 to 2% of paying dividends and then putting in the right of first refusal.
Okay.
Is that something that does it sound good?
That could work. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think this was great.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting with you.
Yes, you
And
as
I
well.
hope that we can
Great
sort of come to
meeting.
terms and sign on the dotted line later on.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely great.
It was
Great
a
to
pleasure
meet you.
meeting you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay, and cut.